I have so many smart, successful friends who've kept their overheads low. They've had very, very successful businesses. Keep things low. Work out of your garage. Do the best you can. If for anybody starting out, don't think that success is having an office that you're paying for monthly and you hang your sign on.
After COVID now and remote work, I think it's a lot more acceptable for clients to see businesses working out of their homes and out of the back of a truck, if whatever it is, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Working like that shouldn't see that as a disadvantage. That's a huge advantage because you can pivot. For me, if the market changes here, I still have to pay the rent. I still have to pay our staff, look after all the expenses that we have here. It's harder for me to pivot. And not impossible, but it's a much bigger task. Should there be changes in the market?
I'm Garrett Wong, and this is the Investing to Win podcast. How do you define success, and what does winning look like for you?
Steve, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you, Garrett.
Yeah, so audience, I am not in my normal podcast studio, as you can see. I am actually in my hotel room in Los Angeles. I'm here for a conference, and it just so happened with the way our schedules worked out, show must go on. So here we go. No lighting, no fancy 4K cameras, but the content is really what matters. So Steve, why don't you give the audience a little bit about your background?
Sure. I'm lived most of my life in Alberta. Currently, I'm a mechanical contractor. We do a lot of work in Fort McMurray. We're probably the largest. Well, we are the largest local mechanical contractor to Fort McMurray. But I didn't start my career doing that. I actually started in sales and marketing and hospitality management, and I got into the trades later in life, in my early 30s. And that's when I started my own business. So I had a business in Edmonton, and it did very well. Our business looked after about 300 or 400 apartment complex at its peak, and we had an opportunity to come up to Fort McMurray. So Fort McMurray, I didn't think I wanted to be here, but we had a client that moved up here and convinced me to come up here, and it was so successful we actually shut down our Edmonton office, and we've been in Fort McMurray since 2002. Over that time, we've done a lot of different things. We've done some amazing projects. We probably completed about $180 million worth of projects in the 2 decades we've been working up here, and we've done some really neat stuff that getting into the trades as a young man, I'm doing some things today that I never thought I'd be doing.
2002, wow. Can you maybe back up? You said you didn't get into the trades until early 30s. What were you doing before that?
So I actually started my career at the Fantasyland Hotel, and I started as a night auditor and worked my way up. At the age of 19, I was the assistant front desk manager. So I had about 75 employees under me. And I got out of that business, and I'm glad I did. That's actually the first job I was actually let go. The first job I ever got let go from. And I'm so glad I did, because if I stayed in that career, it's a fine career, but you're really limited. The pay scale in that industry is very low, and it's a very high burnout rate, and most of the people in that industry are always moving from one location to the next. So it was good that I got out of that. I then went to work for my dad in sales and marketing. He had a business, an oil analysis laboratory. So I got my feet wet with sales and marketing, working in a warehouse. And then my dad had a falling out with his partners. He left the business, and I moved on as well. But my dad has always been an entrepreneur his entire life, and he helped me start my first company. and it was moderately successful. It was marketing some industrial products across Canada and parts of Europe. But what I found was that in the 4 years that I did that, I bought myself a job, and it wasn't a great paying job. It involved a lot of stress, and in that experience, I think I share that with a lot of people who are considering getting into the business. Is your idea of what you want to do, how you want to build your business? Take a look at the market and take a look at it. Are you just buying yourself a job? Because if you're just buying yourself a job that doesn't pay well and has high risk, and there's always risk in business, you'd be better off just working for somebody else, and you'd be able to sleep better at night. So after 4 years, my dad mentored me and helped me recognize that. We sold the business, and I was 29 years old, and I did nothing for 6 months. And that's the first time in my life I've done nothing, because I was doing something. But I recentered myself. I got involved in an apprenticeship, and then everything went from there. Before I finished my 4th year of schooling and got my journeyman ticket, I started my own business. I started doing service work, and that's when we built the business in Edmonton with the looking after all the apartment buildings.
You said something there, Steve, that I say a lot, and I mean, again, I'm at a business conference right now, right? And one of the stats, I can't remember what it is, just I don't know how many millions and millions of businesses in North America, but something like 70 or 80 or 82% are a single operator. And, some of the coaches and mentors that have given me this wisdom, and not to say that, don't want to insult anybody with their own small businesses like that, but that's basically, the debate is, if you're your own operator and only with no employees, is it a business or is it a job? Right. So, your dad imparting those words of wisdom on you young is probably, I think, really unlocked your potential.
What for those small businesses is keep your overheads low. And currently I'm in a bit of a hamster wheel. We can't slow down. We are always looking for the next job. With our offices here and our facility, it takes a lot of money, just to keep the ball rolling. And you have to cover off all of your overheads before you start making any profit. And if that's another really good thing, when we're young and we don't have that experience, we think, well, having an office is a success, to have a place to hang your shingle, but it's really not. I know I have so many smart, successful friends who've kept their overheads low. They've have very, very successful businesses, but they don't have, a big office like we do here. Like I'm in our facility here is about 12,000 square feet. It's very expensive. We've got a lot of depth in our business, and that's a very, very high overheads. Because we work on industrial areas, I need all of that. But if you don't need all of that, to manage all the safety, all the regulations, in order to work on the market that we work in, keep things low. Work out of your garage. Do the best you can. If for anybody starting out, don't think that success is having an office that you're paying for monthly and you hang your sign on.
Yeah. So you can see I'm writing notes down here. The office, bricks and mortar, I think after COVID now and remote work, I think it's a lot more acceptable for clients to see businesses working out of their homes and out of the back of a truck, if, whatever it is, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And we shouldn't, working like that shouldn't see that as a disadvantage. That's a huge advantage because you can pivot, you know. I'm locked into leases and different things. I For me, if the market changes here, I still have to pay the rent. I still have to pay our staff. I still have to look after all the expenses that we have here. It's harder for me to pivot, and not impossible, but it's a much bigger task. Should there be changes in the market?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in real estate. I mean, talk to me about pivots, right? I have a small office now, but I still need an office back in Winnipeg just because clients and tenants and things need to come in and drop off rent. So yeah, there are certain industries, I'm sure chiropractors, doctors, some massage therapists can work out of their homes and, hairstylists and things like that. So there's certain, like you said, you have practically no choice. I mean, you have to put your fleet somewhere. Your neighbors aren't going to want it on your driveway, right? Especially if you're a bigger operation. So yeah, overhead is probably one of the biggest things. Going back here, I was just night auditor. What is a night auditor? I put a note here. I don't want to get too far into the interview before I dive into that. Night auditor of a hotel. I've never heard of that.
So the night auditor, what we do, we would take all of the different receipts and sales of the entire hotel, be it the rooms, the restaurants, the banquets, and we would basically do a daily balance. So we'd tally up all the Visa receipts, we'd tally up all the cash. There were times, um, at that, thinking back, I was a young man when I was doing that, but now that I'm thinking back, I'm like, wow, there were days where I would have $100,000 cash in my hands on busy days. And then we would put it in the vault. So we couldn't leave until we balanced every penny was balanced that the hotel took in that day. And the Fantasyland was a fairly large hotel, very busy hotel.
I'm just picturing you sitting in a basement, dark room, cinder block walls with one of those green caps and a light,
Yeah,
counting money.
well, at the same time, because you start, I think so, and it's a night shift. So I'd start at about I think 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, somewhere around there. I'm trying to remember. It's a long time ago. And then we would work till 7 in the morning. So we're still checking in guests. We're still looking after a lot of the operations of the hotel, taking care of noise complaints, taking care of parking clients' vehicles, being the valet, doing all the tasks that the day shift would normally do, and balancing the hotel as well.
Wow. And yet you say you got let go. Um,
I did, and it was, and I don't think it was because I was a bad employee per se. I think I was just mediocre. I got into a rut, and I don't think it was the right position. Well, it wasn't the right position for me. Absolutely. Um, it's and that kind of gets back to what I was saying about so many people in that industry would move on, and I was still a young man. Like when I left there, I started at 18. I left I was let go when I was 22 years old.
okay.
But people in that industry who are smarter than me, again, would just, when they got into that rut, they would just move to the next place and move to the next place. I didn't quite recognize that at the time, but if I could have been successful in that career had I just moved on.
But yet you kind of were set free, in a sense,
Yes.
right? Being an entrepreneur, we're a special breed, right? Little brand of crazy, a little bit of obsession. Did you feel any entrepreneurial itches back then? Sitting at night for 4 years counting money.
I don't think I did. I thought about places I would go in that career, and um, or what my possibilities were. I thought maybe, running a small hotel one day, or buying into a hotel. So yeah, maybe I did think about entrepreneuring, because I thought, having a small hotel of my own would be where I'd like to wind up. Um, but even that, now that I look back and I've got more life experience, that's buying the job. You're not going to get rich. You're going to be stuck in that spot, running that small hotel. And it's a tough business. It's up and down with the economy, like so many other things.
Yeah, my family had a Chinese restaurant growing up, and I know exactly what it's like to work your 18-hour days, go home, start over. Um, it's interesting because that was a business, but yet we were handcuffed to a very certain extent because they're really, I mean, restaurant businesses, I think there are entire industries that are suited for that. I don't believe Chinese food is, although there's lots of successful families that are expanding 2, 3, 4 locations in a single city. You know, you just reminded me of something. I have this little online community, Rent It Yourself community there, and we do a little book club. And as a real estate guy, I'm embarrassed to admit that I've never read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And I probably should have when I bought my first rental property 25 years ago. So we're going through it now. And, I think one of the biggest lessons he teaches is not get rich in real estate. He talks about having your money work for you, and that a business is something that is just going to give you passive income and increase in value, right? And that's really truly how you get wealthy, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Great book, by the way.
Yeah, no. So you got your journeyman's ticket. What was that decision? Can you remember back then? I mean, you said, I'm just taking notes here. You were doing industrial. You had this business that you sold, and then all of a sudden you're doing an apprenticeship to be a journeyman. Like, what was the decision back then on that?
It's, to be honest with you, it's something I fell into. My office for the business that I sold was owned by a good friend of mine. And back then I was, I looked a lot different. I was doing a lot of endurance racing, and he was my workout partner. And he owned a very successful mechanical firm. And one day when I was, as I told you, after we sold that first business I had, I did nothing for, I mean, I shouldn't say I did nothing. I did lots of things. I just didn't work. I was always riding my bike on, all over Western Canada by myself. I rode from Vancouver to Edmonton, or through the mountains. And he and I would do a lot of rides together. And probably about 5 months in, I'm still doing nothing. I'm living off some of the proceeds from the sale of the business. And he said to me, "What do you want to do with your life, Steve?" He said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Chris, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do." And he said, "Would you consider a trade?" And I said, yeah, I would. So he invited me to start with this company, and start as a green guy. The only asset I had back then, though, is I was a very strong man. So I was digging ditches and lifting things, doing a lot of manual labor, and I started my apprenticeship, and went to school, learned all I could learn, and I finally got my ticket. And it's when I got my journeyman ticket, that's when actually the real learning started, because you don't just get that ticket and then magically everything. I'm still learning so many things today in our trade, in our business. It's always changing.
Yeah, I mean, describe for the audience, at least let's go back a little bit, 20 years, Edmonton. Okay, so was it called Letcar Mechanical back then?
It started as Steve's Plumbing and Heating, and that's when I started in Edmonton, and I did fairly well working out of my garage. I had a few employees. Then there was a plumber at Amory Supply in Edmonton, and we became friends. His name was Dan Carroll. And we decided, because he had so many great contacts, we decided to join forces, and we became Dan and Steve's Plumbing and Heating. And we did very well. The company grew very fast. It wasn't too long before we had a dozen employees all working. And like I said, we looked after some major properties, probably about 300 or 400 large properties, multifamily apartments, condos, and so forth. And then that's the time period. That's probably about 2002. That's when one of my clients started talking to me about coming to Fort McMurray. So we came to Fort McMurray, and we were still Dan and Steve's Plumbing and Heating, and we started doing the same type of work that we were doing in Edmonton, and that was looking after a very large apartment complex, basically rebuilding it, all the mechanical systems in this apartment complex. One day, I was working in somebody's suite, and Fort McMurray is a blue-collar working town, and I didn't industrial, and I had very little exposure to that. And I was working in somebody's suite, and I believe I was fixing the heating radiator. It froze. I was fixing it, putting in a new zone valve, fixing the pipes. And as I'm working there, there's a gentleman having a coffee, sitting at a table behind me, and he said, would you ever consider working at some of the mine sites? He says, there's quite a bit of work, and there's a need for. I said, I would consider that. So he handed me his business card. I handed him mine. And the next day I got a phone call to go and install a watch car at a new mine that was being built. And we did that. And while I was working there, somebody else walked by, asked me the same thing. But they asked me if I'd be interested in working on the mine. So I got a call the next day, and now I'm working right in the mine on some of, and that was a totally different world. And that took a lot to wrap my head around the safety and the different infrastructures that are required to be able to do that work. And thankfully, I don't think it would be able to happen today to get in the back door that way. But the companies that I worked for mentored me, because they needed that contractor that they could trust working on the mine sites. They mentored me, helped me get established, helped me develop our corporate culture, helped develop our health and safety, helped develop all the safety associations that we need to be part of to be able to do the work. And then, it just blossomed from there. And in the heyday, our biggest year was we did about $24 million worth of work.
Incredible.
In 1 year.
Incredible. Talk about opportunity. Can you, our audience here is not only Canadian, it's North American wide. Maybe describe the population for Edmonton, and then for context, the population of Fort McMurray and what its main, I guess, industries are.
For sure. And I do want to get back to that crazy successful year, because I have a really important lesson that I learned in that. But
Absolutely, we will.
So Fort McMurray is driven mostly by the oil sands, and as a result, it's very cyclical. So the market here, when the oil is up, we are busy. When the oil is down, there's nothing happening. People aren't spending money, and that's something that kind of forced us to get into doing other things than just doing the mechanical work that we do. And some people might not understand what is meant by mechanical work. So mechanical work is mostly construction, and it's plumbing, heating, it's HVAC systems, building controls, fire sprinklers, any of the mechanical systems in a building. Some people, when we talk about being mechanical, they think, well, maybe we work on cars or automotives, but it's building systems. From the drainage right up to heating systems, complex heating systems. So there's been some real ups and downs in Fort McMurray. 2007. We had a backlog of about $13 million worth of work, and we went on Christmas holidays. So everything was great. Came back, and there was a crash over the holidays, and we had to, and that $13 million backlog evaporated. So we had to do a lot of restructuring. We had to get back to our roots, and that was doing service work. When we had to look at opportunities as they came up. Welding. So we have a welding division where we do structural and pressure welding. We have a roofing division. We do lots of roofing every year, probably anywhere from $1 to $2 million worth of roofing in a year. We do video inspections. We do some general contracting nowadays. Some of our clients want us to move walls or build systems. We've done some, given the opportunity, as long as it makes sense, we'll do it. Just to give you a quick example, one recently, we do a lot of work at the college here. So the one of the buildings was built in the 70s, probably one of the original buildings, and it's a modular building. It's called the Bob Lamb Building, and it started to sink. It was built on dunnage, which is just big pieces of wood. And after the floods here in 2020, it started sinking, and it's a large building. Like, it's probably on two levels, 100,000 square feet. So they asked us, hey, could you take a look at this? And in order to really figure out what was happening there, we did a 3D scan of the entire building, inside and out, and 3D modeling. And with that information, and working with engineers, we developed a way to lift the building and level it, and we did that. And that's something I never thought that I would be doing, but we through a system of putting beams underneath the building and jacks and lasers and all kinds of other things, we had a team go out and lifted a building, hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Yes, there's so much meat there on the bone I want to talk about. The population that I had mentioned. Do you recall the population of Edmonton and Fort McMurray, just for context?
Yeah, for sure. So in Edmonton, there's a little over 1 million people.
Okay.
I'm not on it right now, but I think it's around 1.3 last I checked. And Edmonton has a lot of diverse. It's a larger center. It's got a lot of different industries, and it's not like Fort McMurray. Fort McMurray is up and down, can be up and down like a yo-yo. I think right now we're about 70,000 people. There was a time, and it's very transient. There's a lot of people that come in and out, and just come here to work, and then on their off days they'll take do a 2-week on, 2-week off shift, have a cross shift that works for them, and there's a time when we were probably about 120,000 if we included the transients. Right now we're about 70,000. The market here seems to be getting a lot better. It's going the right direction. I don't think it'll ever be like it was in the heyday, but there's still a lot of work to be done up there. There's a few plants that are being built, smaller plants. But a lot of the work that we're doing today is plants like Cinerel and Syncrude and Suncor, and we're rebuilding the plants. So the plants were designed to work, to be in operation for 25 years, and they're hitting the 40 or 50 year mark, and the venting's falling apart. Or maybe when they built it, they weren't using the best materials. We've come to realize, as much as we want to go green, we still need oil. We can't rely on green energy right now. And oil is in so many products that we use today. And the daily requirements in the world for oil does continue to go up. So Fort McMurray is going to be around for a long time. And what we're working on now, the big projects are in rebuilding a lot of the infrastructure that was, original plant.
Tell me about the $24 million year. And
Yes.
because I think there's lots of lessons there. I have also grown. I'm guessing that you're going to see it grew a little bit too fast and was crazy, but enlighten us. I'd love to hear the story.
Yes. And my wife helps out in our business quite a bit. And, if I had the type of controls in place that we have today, boy, we could have retired a long time ago. But, with everything happening in our business, growing so fast, and we didn't have the systems in place, the checks and balances to capture everything. And we realized that when we came to the end of we didn't even do monthly reporting. Like now we do, I've got my financials I can look at monthly. I spend a lot of time looking at sales and different ways of being more efficient. And that's a big part of what I do here. But back then, we would take a look at the end of the year and see where we're at, sit down with our accountants and, take a look at what the history of what happened that year. So our best year ever, $24 million. And when we did our year end and we sat down with our accountants and I looked at the financials, and I'm looking down and I'm like, what just happened here? That year, our net profit was $47,000.
Yeah, well, top line revenue versus net is not always proportional. What was your year before?
Year before was probably about 12 or 15 million, I think.
Net?
So we doubled in the gross.
Oh,
I'm
gross.
talking
Okay.
gross.
All right. So you doubled your top line, but I'm guessing that you made more than $47,000 the year before.
Oh, yes. Yes. It was probably
Yeah.
closer to $1 million.
Yeah. Wow.
So here we had all this growth, all this, and we're thinking, man, this is just fantastic. This is fabulous. And because we were flying by the seat of our pants, and like, and some of the things that can happen in our business, let's say, like if we're not on our controls, on our purchasing, someone goes to the wholesaler, and maybe it should be, maybe it's a project. This is where it really gets you, is when those projects where you're charging time and material.
Yeah.
They go and they buy $40,000 worth of pipes or whatever they need to do this job. And that, on those time and material jobs, if that does not get allocated to that job, then it's lost. And the way that I look at it, let's say we didn't get that one receipt to bill to that client for $40,000. On a good year, we seem to be at our net profit seemed to be around 8 to 5%. And that's, I'd like to see it a little bit more, but that seems to be our average number. And at that rate, we can be a viable, healthy company. But that $40,000, if you really think about it, to make up for that how much that's right off the top end. So that's off your net profit. So maybe that's $1 million worth of sales to make up for that when you look at really what our margins are.
And in context, $40,000 back then, or even now, would hire you an admin to make sure that that invoice gets allocated to the proper job, right?
For sure. Different hours. Like, one thing that we have a lot of checks and balances. I think that we're fairly well run in how we capture things, whether it's our time, um, even our vehicles are all GPSed. So we have someone in our office, and one of her tasks, and it's getting harder now. We're probably around 60 employees, but her task is to check the timesheets for everyone in the business and compare it to the GPS records of where that person was working. And that allows us to make sure, I guess, that we capture the time, but it also keeps us, I feel very confident in what we build to our clients, because we do double check, and we do sometimes make adjustments to invoices before they get sent to clients. So I can be very confident that if we're charging for a 10-hour day to a client, that we had somebody working there for 10 hours. That's, and that's just one little piece of it. We're so detailed that even if, we've had company gas cards go missing, and this happened a couple of years ago, and we didn't know till about a month or two after, and here there's, $7,000 or $8,000, somebody, wherever it went, was put on our gas card, and there's no insurance on gas cards, and we had to pay that out of pocket. So when someone even goes to fill up their vehicle now, they actually have to pull a PO, and it allows us to have a day-to-day track, even on our fuel costs, fuel expenditures for the vehicles.
One of the they talked about yesterday at my business workshop is just know your numbers, but track your numbers. Because if you can't track, how are you supposed to know them? And if you don't know them, how are you supposed to know if you're off track, right? Would you agree with that?
100%. You need to know what your costs are. You need to be able to capture everything. Yeah, that's so important.
Steve, you mentioned these mentor lessons from these big corporate mine companies and things like that. Can you enlighten us a little bit on some of that structure that they mentored you to inject into your current business?
Absolutely. It started with, trying to figure out how to put together a safety program. And that was a very daunting task. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we have to develop safety manuals. We have to develop processes. And what they did, and I remember, one of my mentors, his name was Randy McNutt, and he was the CEO for one of our clients, CBS Construction, and we did quite a lot of their mechanical work. And we would fly under the radar underneath their safety systems. So when we went to site, it looked like it was, a CBS worker. But they recognized that it would be in their best interest to bring us up and lift us up as an independent, and then just sub us out. So I remember so many times we would go over in the evening to Randy's office, and he was so gracious to sit down with us. And I think once he even involved his safety HSE representative and allowed us to use their manuals, and we just basically tailored it to our company. And they probably spent dozens of hours helping us do that. And then we'd have to be audited. We'd have to review our programs and peer audits. on our safety programs, and that was huge for them to be able to do that. To have a business, and if you walked into Fort McMurray and you wanted to have that infrastructure, it would cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop. So them helping us do that was huge. And then it was the pricing structure. How do we bill ourselves to our clients? And we have spreadsheets on how every man hour is broken down into, whether it's the amount of training we put into them, whether it's the amount of PPE that we have to give them. We have to take a look at our trucks, and we have a big spreadsheet on what we have to charge our clients on trucks. And often when we do these bids, especially on the time and materials, they want to see our spreadsheets. They want to know what our margins are. So we have to be open book and share with them. And from the insurance to repairs to fuel to tires to how we set up our trucks with toolboxes or canopies, all of that's itemized out, where we come up with a number that we charge per hour that represents a little bit of margin and what that asset cost us. So it was, and we've helped other companies. We've tried to pass it on and mentor other companies to do that as well. But it's one of the reasons that I like working where we do. We are somewhat limited to our margins, but in business, you're often the people that are your rock stars in your business, the people that you work with who are amazing, and they turn out to be managers in your business. And it's unfortunate, but this is what happens. Very often, they wind up leaving your company. They'll become your competition, and that's one of the things that doesn't happen in our market, because it's just too much to take on. I don't think I'll ever have one of our employees start their business and compete with us on a mine site tomorrow. It just won't happen. It took us years to get established and to be a company that was sought after, and that's nice to have, because a lot of our work is sole sourced, and that's and we have to be responsible with that too, because we have to, we're here for long term. We want to give our clients good value, and yes, we're sole source, but we need to be fair, and we need to establish that trust with our clients, so that when they need a job done, they'll call us and they say, "Oh, we can accept their price. We don't have to shop it around, because they're fair to us." And a lot of times we're open book with our clients. Here it is. This is what it costs. This is what we're making, and it's reasonable. And that's been our success in the oil sands. So,
one of the things they were really pushing yesterday in the workshop was spend 70% of your time building relationships if you're able to when you're starting a business. I can't agree with that statement more. And to your point, just being able to have people trust you. Well, you can't have people trust you if you don't build that relationship first, right? And the more trust they have, the less they question. The more efficient you can be, because you're not having to justify every single piece of anything, right? So I think those are really wise words. You spoke
there's
to
one more
me.
thing. There's one
Yeah.
more thing to that I just wanted to add, and it's an important point. And this is, and you talk about building relationships. I'm at a point where I'm no longer on the tools. I'm my job here is building relationships. So I have the best job in the world. Shaking hands and kissing babies, and that's where I serve this company best. But one of the things I just wanted to point out as well is that in our business, we're not perfect. I don't have control on every single facet of the business, and especially as having 60 employees, it's very hard to control everything, and we will make mistakes. We do make mistakes. We try to make as few as possible. But if we have that relationship with our clients, we get some level of grace where, hey, Steve, you screwed this up, or something happened here that shouldn't have. How do we fix that? Where if we were just another call out of the phone book, it might not go that way. We're like, hey, get somebody else in here. These guys aren't doing a good job. That relationship and that level of communication gets you the feedback that you need, the honest feedback, and that's so important in a service industry like ours.
Yeah, no, same thing. I mean, in property management, right? So building those relationships. Yeah, sorry for interrupting you there. I actually want you spoke to just adjusting for different climates, and you were diversifying. You told me a story when I was up in Fort McMurray last month, about automotive. Can you share kind of that context for the audience and how that came to be? And yeah, I'm not gonna take away the thunder on that, but yeah, go ahead and
Oh,
tell
yeah,
that story.
sure. So Fort McMurray is a very expensive place to work. Um, you know, things here cost so much more. It's hard to wrap your head around. You know, um, I once had a large gift from my wife shipped from Ontario to Edmonton, and it was $500 to get it from Ontario to Edmonton on a train. To bring it to Fort McMurray was $600 from Edmonton. Just to give you an idea, things up here are super expensive. So we had a large fleet, and because of the challenging market, we were not replacing our fleet the way we used to. So we're running our fleets longer, and it was becoming very expensive because if you just go to any automotive shop here, the rate's probably about $180 an hour. If you go to Ford or GM or Dodge, it's $255 an hour for service. And so we started doing our own work. We got a mechanic, we got some lifts, we got some equipment, and now we're fixing our own trucks. And it was fabulous because, here you take your truck to Ford and it might sit there for 2 weeks before it would get worked on. And that's a tool that makes money for the business. It without that, I can't get the guy to do the work. So that's huge for us to have those trucks all working. So we started doing that on our own, and we had more capacity. So, we started inviting friends and clients with fleets. Hey, maybe we can help you out. And I and just to back up a step there, I thought that's a business that there's no boss there taking a salary off the top. There's no high level manager that's taking a salary off the top. My entire goal for that was to offset some of the overheads for our core business. So if we could do that, look after our own fleets, get a bit better rate, they're separate companies. So Letcar Mechanical still has to pay Letcar Auto, but it's a much more palatable rate. Uh, and and it took so much longer than I thought to make sense, but it's slowly starting to make sense where we're in the black. The business is paying its own rent for the building now. That was a huge challenge. And I'm happy that we stuck with it. It's been three years that we've been supplementing that business, but and we're able to offer the best rate in town because we don't need to. You know, I really, if all that business does is offset overheads and look after our fleets, it's a win. It's a huge win for us. So I'm not looking to get rich on that, on the automotive. Automotive is a much tougher business than I ever thought it was. It's hard to make money. It's a big challenge. You have to be, um, I had to. Thankfully, we've recently acquired a controller who really helps manage and look after that business, and it makes sense now. And then I'm glad we did, because it's nice to for us to get our trucks working. We probably have about 30 vehicles in our fleet.
Yeah, I think the concept, and this is something I'm looking into myself for my property management business, is vertical integration, right? Which is trying to go into other areas that can complement your core business. That just makes sense. And I think it's just fascinating because this was born out of necessity, not because you just wanted to do it, but because there you just didn't have the suppliers that could fulfill your needs in such a small town, right? It just wasn't a matter of like what I'm trying to do, which is just going into it because, there's an opportunity there. Um, yeah, would you give any advice for anybody trying to start any type of entrepreneurial into the trades? What would your sort of top three pieces of advice be?
Yeah, and I've probably touched on a lot of them, several of them already. But I would say, you need to know your market. You need to know, who your competition is. You need to know what costs are involved. Um, you have to take a look at, your overheads. Make sure that your overheads are low, and that's again, I thinking back of myself as getting into business, thinking that a place to hang my sign was a measurement of success. Today, I certainly don't feel that way. I think that, you're far better ahead to, um, keep things as lean as possible, and then capturing your cost, knowing what things cost. You know, to give people. I try to mentor a lot of people, and I associate myself with a lot of different businessmen, and I enjoy it because just like talking with you this morning, I we can share our mistakes and hopefully, get a lot of knowledge and, um, by learning from each other. But it's knowing what things cost. It's doing a business, do a proper business model. Um, and you'd have to do that for a bank as well if you're looking for any kind of lending. But know what your costs are. Make sure you capture everything. Keep things lean, and know what your market is. Know what you can charge. Know what your competition's doing.
And I would also say building those relationships, right?
100%.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this, even though we had to kind of cobble this together, and it's pretty early here out in LA. But I like to ask every guest one question, so you're no exception. So, Steve, this is the Investing to Win podcast. How do you define success, and what does winning look like for you?
And that's changed throughout my life. What I thought winning was, it's having enough to be comfortable. I don't think about personally. I don't think I need to be rich. It's being with my family. It's being with my friends. It's having a quality of life. I've had, through the last 2 decades working up here, I've had the opportunity to do some amazing things. Things I never thought I would be able to do. But it's being comfortable, and being, what's the word I'm trying to look for? And I don't necessarily think that I have the best quality of life, most days, because of stress levels and, because of the challenges I have in business. It's not always what it's made to be. It's tough, and most people don't stick with it because it's really the only reason I'm still here is because I'm really stubborn. Just ask my wife; she'll tell you. But recognizing what's an appropriate level of success for yourself, recognizing what the balance between quality of life and success. And for the most part, I wish I would have spent more time on quality of life.
Well, I think the word you were looking for perhaps is being fulfilled, right?
Mhm.
And I would say that's important. No, I like I said, I'm living my life the same way you are, and I think doing the things that you like to do, and if you're having fun despite the stress,
Mhm.
and being able to spend time with who you want when you want, I think those are definitely keys to success.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks a lot this morning for hanging out with me for the last hour. Really appreciate you. I'll say stopping by, but it's a virtual podcast studio. So thanks again, and I'm sure the audience got tons out of this.
Thanks, Garrett. I appreciated talking to you this morning.
All right, likewise.
All right, take care.